The Central Park Five. We all remember that story from 25 years ago, believe it or not. Well, after the long, tortured legal process, that group has reached a $41 million settlement with the city of New York after serving 6 to 13 years in prison for a crime that we all now know they didn't commit. Raymond Santana, a member of those 5 young men at the time, was just 14 years of age when he was arrested along with 4 other young men. They were arrested for the rape and beating of the Central Park jogger in 1989. The confession from another man and DNA evidence in the case later exonerated them of the crime. And Dominic sat down with Raymond Santana earlier this week, and we brought the first part of the interview where we talked about the whole legal process of it. And now it's, I guess we're going to hear part of what it's like when you actually get out, right?
I'm glad you brought that up, Richard. Just imagine this. Raymond Santana never got the opportunity to attend a high school dance. As Richard says, he was, after all, only 14 years old at the time. Now he's about to turn 40. And while he was locked up, his mother died of cancer. Santana is grateful to Mayor de Blasio, even the mayor's son, with that afro hairstyle. You will find out why in just a second. We met with Raymond Santana at Melba's restaurant in Harlem, only 4 blocks from Central Park, a park Mr. Santana says he has not been in since that night in April of 1989. He says false confessions happen all the time and that this case almost completely destroyed his father.
Now he's a proud man, and back in '89 he went through so much. He got ridiculed at work. He got ridiculed in the neighborhood. He developed a drinking problem, and now, you know, he has done the 360. I can't get him to be quiet. You know, when the film came out, he wanted posters, T-shirts, and he tells the whole world if he can.
What was the worst part of this experience for you?
Besides going to jail and losing my freedom.
Well, at least you can laugh about it now.
Well, you know, along the way, we lost a lot of people. My mom's passed away when I was in prison due to cancer.
How do you feel about the Central Park jogger?
You know, with the jogger, you know, we understand that she went through a dramatic injury, right? And she was able to recover and come back. And in this process, her and the prosecutor and some of the detectives became very good friends. And so here you have somebody telling you for these years that we're guilty. Now Reyes comes along and he proves through DNA testing that we're innocent. The same people are still telling you we're guilty. And that's something that's very difficult to deal with. And so we never pushed the issue for her to meet us. We said if she ever wanted to talk to us, she could come and talk to us.
Would you like to meet her?
Yes, because I know that she has a lot of questions that she would like to ask.
Really, why would you like to meet her? You just said as far as questions, but why would you, Raymond Santana, like to meet her?
Because I feel that she was victimized twice, not only by Mateus Reyes, but also by the people who she befriended, who told her this lie for all these years. And I still think that to a certain extent, she still believes it.
Did you, throughout the years, become emotional and break down and say, I'll never be able to get over this?
Yes, yes. Which was landing me back in prison, back in 1998, 99, you know, when I caught the drug case. Because that was a time for me where I felt I hit rock bottom and I felt there was no other obstacle for me, and I just gave up. I said, you know what, the hell with it, I can't get a job, I can't move on, I'm gonna just do the best that I can.
You couldn't get a job?
I could not get a job. I filled out numerous applications, and you know, when they say, well, have you ever been convicted of a crime? Yes. You know, what is that crime? Rape in the 1st degree. There's no job.
So you've been a tortured soul for a very long time?
Very long time.
What are you going to do with all that money?
You know, it's not a lot of money, you know, but I don't, you know, the only option that I look at, the only thing I look at now is that I have the ability now to have options, which means that I'm not going to be so quick to rush to judgment. I'm just going to enjoy this moment and take my time in whatever I decide to do.
So I would imagine, even at the young age of 40, that you are in retirement now and that you don't work.
No, I'm working.
You're working?
I'm still working.
A multi-million-dollar settlement and you're working?
I'm working, you know, because I never had a job, you know, or I had jobs for short periods of time. This is a job that I can say that, you know, I can own. I got a job, I'm doing something, I'm putting food on the table, you know, I'm paying bills, you know, and it's part of healing, it's part of making me whole. And so I'm not so quick to just leave it.
And what do you do? I read somewhere that you work for a local union?
Yes, I work for 1189 SCIU. I'm in the pension and benefits fund, so I process documents all day.
How do you feel, let's talk politics for a second before I let you go here. How do you feel the Corporation Counsel, the chief lawyer for the city of New York that permitted this settlement to go forward, is a former U.S. attorney, an African-American by the name of Zachary Carter. And of course, Mayor de Blasio ran on a platform of if he was elected, he would settle this case. We both know if the mayor didn't want this case settled, it wouldn't be settled.
That's 100% correct.
So how do you feel about the mayor?
I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the mayor, you know, that he vowed to make a change with this city and to take away that line of divides and bring us all together. I'm glad that, you know, he said, you know what, there was an injustice that was done here and we need to correct this wrong. You know, I'm glad that Dante came out with this afro and this Brooklyn sweater, you know, and it brought us that close to the mayor, you know, to see that his kids represented our youth, you know, our future, you know, and so I was just grateful at the end of the day.
Mr. Santana, what do you say to people watching you right now that say, you know what, I'm not so sure these guys had something to do with this?
You know, I tell them, I say, at the end of the day, you don't have to believe me. There's numerous documents that you can read. You know, there's the report by Nancy Ryan, which is a 52-page document that explains how we're innocent. You know, if you want to read the Armstrong report, that's fine. You know, I challenge all media, you know, 5-10 years from now when all those documents that are marked confidential become open to the public, if they ever do, read them. Jim Dwyer says that there were over 94,000 documents marked confidential. Is that to cover something that we did? No, I doubt that.
What do you think about the media? I mean, you were 14 years old.
Yeah.
You didn't know anything about the media or newspapers or television reporters or ratings or selling papers. What do you think about the media now that you're 40 years old and you've been through this experience?
You know, now, you know, when I got older and I started to do my research and find out that there were over 400 articles written on us within the first 2 weeks of this case. You know,
400?
400, over 400 articles written on the 5 of us.
Called Wolfpack?
Everything.
Did that bother you?
Of course. Wolfpack, urban terrorist, the term super predator.
You were aware of what was being said about you?
Back then, no. Just the label of the wilding, the urban terrorist, but it went deeper than that. You know, the super predator terminology came because of this case, where 41 states changed their juvenile laws to make them harsher. That I didn't know about until I got older. You know, and so now, you know, what we do is we ask the media, right the wrong, write the correct stuff. You know, when we was exonerated, we was on page 15. Put us on the front now. Let everybody know what happened to us. Don't hide away from it. Own up to your part. Own up to your responsibility as the media. Go and dig into those files and look at that stuff and put it out there.
I've noticed from observing you around the community, you're almost like a hero figure now. Is there anything you'd like to close with that's on your mind?
The thing that we want people to know is that this is real. False convictions, false confessions happen all the time. And if you don't want to take our case as an example, go to the Innocence Project. There are over 3 exonerations on there. This stuff happens all the time, all across the country. And once we start to realize that it's real, then we can start to affect change.
I close this way. You mentioned prosecutions. Legendary Manhattan District Attorney Bob Morgenthau. I remember he sat down to do the interview with me and he admitted that his office made a mistake and that there was no DNA evidence and that you guys were not guilty. And he pressed immediately to have you released from prison. How do you feel about Mr. Morgenthau?
Grateful.
Are you grateful to him?
I'm grateful at the end of the day because, you know, you see now Kim Thompson is starting to uncover all these false convictions in Brooklyn.
District Attorney in Brooklyn,
exactly. Right? And that stuff that Hines didn't want uncovered. And here was Morgenthau, who's been in office over 30 years, prosecuted thousands of cases.
Law and order is based on his life.
Exactly. And he stepped forward. He was not afraid to step forward, even though he was getting pressure from both sides. You know, one side said, don't overturn him. Another side said, overturn him. That's the right thing to do. And he said, at the end of the day, I'm going to go to the law. If the law tells me that I have to overturn this case, this is what I'm going to do. And that's what the system is about. And at that moment, he represented and he did his job to the perfect ability.
Again, remember, it was indeed the legendary prosecutor, Mr. Morgenthau, the Manhattan District Attorney, who had put them in jail in the first place, that stepped forward. Morgenthau, Richard, didn't fight it, but he came forward publicly and said they were not guilty, convictions overturned.
You know, Don, one thing between yesterday and today's conversation, what struck me is he's not as bitter as I would assume, or as maybe as I assume I'd be. You know, if somebody stole my entire youth, at least my young adulthood, you know, you never got to, your mother dies in prison, you can't even go to the funeral, you know, and so much. You mentioned yesterday's interview, his father harassed at work here, assumed that he raised what is a super predator and all the rest. He's got a healthy outlook considering everything he went through.
It's a positive thing. What he has trouble dealing with, as he said yesterday, he's used to waking up every day, and it's a fight every day, whether a media interview or going to talk to kids. And as Mr. Santana said, the fight is over. They won. They got the $41 million settlement, minus a third for the attorney fees. And so he's just trying to go forward, if that's possible, with his life.
Mm. Now, we asked yesterday, because somebody had mentioned early in the day to me, hey, you know, that's a lot of money, you know what? I take that money. And I said, really? You do, 6 to 13 years at a maximum security facility, really? Going in as a kid? Well, anyway, we asked you, the audience, to make your opinions heard about that case, and if, in effect, the reparations, if you will, really fit the crime. Well, we got some comments. I want to get to a few right now, and the first one coming from David, who said that, no, you cannot put a price tag on freedom when it's taken away. It is wrong. Becky said, agreeing with him, no way, you can't buy back those years. Vincenzo agreeing with her, saying absolutely not. And Dante said, you can't put a price on the value of life. It's an insult to one's humanity. It's sad that people don't realize this. The money is a great compensation. The person probably won't have the wisdom to do with it what's right and blow it like so many people do on a daily basis. Well, let's hope that's not the case here. But thank you for the reaction. Coming up next, everyone, we are going to be talking about Mayor de Blasio. Dominic mentioned in here he came forward on this particular case, but how about overall? Did New Yorkers, including some of us at this table, Dominic Carter, underestimate Bill de Blasio's political savviness? His behind-the-scenes dealing with Governor Cuomo over the Working Families Party, a lot of people thought was a shrewd power move here, as well as a few other plays that may be going on behind the scenes. What else could the mayor really have, and what could he be thinking about in the near future? We'll talk about that with the table after this.